Over the last 2 months, the church in Nigeria has had to reckon with accountability in a way previously unseen. Accusations of manipulation and nepotism, reports of crimes of sexual assault, abuse of power, political involvement, and financial impropriety have trailed prominent church leaders, whether it is the Anglican, Pentecostal, Catholic, or Evangelical church. And this has forced many of their followers to re-examine their commitment to the faith. Disillusionment is growing among the people for whom the church is supposed to bring guidance and comfort. I want to understand why this is happening, and so I'll be speaking to some of the people at the epicenter of some conversations happening within the church right now, one of which is a popular rape accusation to one very prominent pastor. 2 people that know him very well live in Ilorin, and I'm speaking with them. And I'm hoping that these interviews I conduct will bring clarity and perspective to these events and help us decide if such incidences are merely growing pains or are symptomatic of a much deeper rot we need to exercise. I'm doing this because I've spent many years in this industry, and I'm collaborating with Why Niger. Today's woman and Why Niger want to know what the truth is, and we are right here. We went right into Ilorin to find out. We're speaking with Pastor Busola Olotu. I'm so glad to be here with you.
I'm glad you're here too.
Let me start by saying thank you for doing this. Thank you for opening your ministry, your heart, and your home to being a part of the conversation that a lot of us don't want to have, especially as mothers. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
You're a mother of how many daughters, how many children in total?
I have 4 daughters.
Okay. And what's their age range?
40 and to 30. Between 40 and 30.
I know you're a lawyer.
Yes.
Is any of them a lawyer?
3. I have 2 daughters that are lawyers. Yes, 2 daughters that are lawyers, and my son also is a lawyer.
I understand. You know, sometimes I have to remind myself which child is what and all of that.
Especially when you have more than 2.
I can imagine. But I would like to start first of all by asking, how did you end up in ministry?
My journey has been long. Let me say, I never thought of ministry in my life. I just wanted to be a lawyer. But interestingly, my husband now decided to settle in Ilorin. I started practicing my law, and I was in the Ministry of Justice for 8 years, and I was on contract appointment. After 8 years, after a lot of noise, they decided to give me a permanent and pensionable appointment, but then they now refused to backdate my appointment. So which means I would have lost...
Wasted 8 years.
8 years. So I just decided to step aside at that stage. By that time I was born again, and I thought that where I was not celebrated, or where, there was really no upliftment, it wasn't the place for me. So I stepped out. I wanted to just be a lawyer, join a legal firm, or start something of my own. Then my husband comes in and says, well, you have 5 children, that would be difficult to do. So I ended up in business, and I was doing my business when God called me into ministry work. First, through the Redeemed Christian Church of God, where I was a pastor for pastoring, as a parish pastor, then an area pastor, and then I was upgraded to a zonal pastor, although I did not occupy that position for one day. My area was upgraded to a zone, but it was at that time my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ asked me to step out into Daughters of Deborah International Ministry, and that's where I've been in the last 10 years.
In recent times, when you think of ministry, especially with the new born-again churches, people think wealth, people think affluence, people think influence as well. And I wonder though, I see your place humble. You've been doing this for 10 years.
Yes.
I have not seen your private jet. I have not seen the big cars outside. So what do you see ministry as beyond that?
I see ministry first and foremost as service to God and to man. Ministry is impact. It's not so much about wealth and all this glitz and glamour. It's about being who God has created you to be.
I asked that question because the case study that is making us want to speak to ministers across Nigeria, for anybody who's open to us, is one of someone who shares your name. Her name is Busola,
okay,
who has recently come out to say her pastor at some point in time had raped her in the past. Now there's been a lot of controversy, and we decided to come to Ilorin, to the home where this particular pastor originated. And I'm aware that you must know him. It's impossible. Ilorin is a small place. Do you know this pastor? Are you aware of this case? And what are your thoughts with regards to this case?
I know Pastor Biodun. Actually, Pastor Biodun at some point was quite close to me.
When you say close, what does that mean?
Well, close in the sense of I was like somebody he looked up to in terms of, he just started, moving towards me. How do I put this? He came at some point to introduce himself to me, and
had he started ministry at that time?
I don't know if he had started ministry the way it was at a point. But let me say, he came to me and he said he was planning a program and he wanted to give me, I was one of those he wanted to honor. And so I said to him, but I don't know you and you don't know me. So I'd be very slow to receive that kind of honor. I need to know you. So I didn't go for that program. But he later came and dropped the gift that they were, planning on giving me. So after that, he started to come. It was like a clock with something on it. After that, he started to come to see me and talk to me about his church. I think by that time they were at Pipeline Road, and my house is off Pipeline Road, and he was living off Pipeline Road. And he appeared to be a very, very respectful, young man who was just trying to find himself in ministry. And so I drew near to him and his wife. I even used to go and visit them in their home. They would come to visit me in my house. My husband knew him and everything. But, at a point, he left Ilorin. He didn't really tell me when he left Ilorin. I didn't know when he left Ilorin, but at some point, I just realized that the relationship had broken, and...
there was no reason for that, though?
No reason for that.
Okay, now I went that way because this particular pastor became somebody very influential, still is, and are all pastors built to be that influential? If their life is to live the life of Christ, right? Are they built, how does it happen that a pastor ends up having so much influence? Because influence can be abused. I'm sure you know that.
Yes, I know that. You know that God himself is a God of influence, and he created us for influence, but influence can be either negative or positive. We as pastors, we are called to have positive influence. Sometimes it becomes an avenue for manipulation, which is not right.
Manipulation of the congregation.
Of the congregation, which isn't right. You see, I believe, and this is what I tell the women here, everything about us, about our preaching, is about someone. His name is Jesus. We draw our influence from him. And Apostle Paul said, be you a follower of me as I am of Christ. So everything about us is supposed to ooze out Christ. And the Bible tells us, let our moderation be known to all men.
No, let's come to the case at hand. A young woman, several years after, comes out and says, my pastor did this to me. Now she goes to make it public because it's something that is not easy to do. People castigate her, people say all kinds of things about her. but we haven't heard anything from the Christian fathers or from even the person who is the accused in this case. What do you think about that?
That is horrible. That is totally unacceptable. And I personally, I am disappointed that people who are maybe nominal Christians or not Christians at all are making so much noise about this, whereas the Christian body is so silent. We're as silent as a graveyard.
They're probably investigating.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they are investigating, but I believe that
this is a stand.
Exactly. There has to be a stand. That, you know, this is an issue that cannot be swept under the rug. It can be swept under the carpet. We can't pretend as if it didn't happen. We can't pretend as if we're deaf, we're not hearing, or we're blind, we're not seeing. That does not glorify God in our lives.
Have you reached out to Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo yourself? Because you know him, you say. Have you reached out to Busola yourself? Because you know them.
Yeah. You see, concerning Busola, what happened was in 2011, a young lady joined this ministry. Her name is Fumi Ayeni. And she joined during our formal inauguration ceremony at Kwara Hotels. She filled a membership form and she became a formal member of this ministry. And somehow she really truly gravitated towards me as a mother. We became quite close. And, you know, she used to talk with me and everything. And, you know, we were, you know, when you run a ministry like this, you are not close to everybody.
That's right.
But she is a daughter in whom I'm well pleased. All my daughters are daughters in whom I'm well pleased, but in the sense that she has consistently been very close to me. She has shared deep things with me, you know, even about her life personally and everything. So one day in 2011, Fumi walks into my office here and she's actually very agitated. She said she's, you know, everything about her was, I don't know, ruffled. So she sat down and then she said, Mommy, it's not about me. It's about my sister.
Older or younger?
She said, my younger sister. So I said, what is it about your younger sister? She said, my younger sister has been facing deep psychological challenges since something happened to her years ago. So I said, what kind of psychological challenges? Is it spiritual, psychological, or what? She said, my sister was raped by a pastor. So when she said that, you know, so many emotions ran through me because number one, I'm a mother. Number two, I'm a pastor, you know, and I was speechless. So I said, your sister was raped by a pastor? She said, yes. She said, and since then, her life has not remained the same.
Did you ask who the pastor is or was?
Yes. And she said, I asked who the pastor was. She was a bit hesitant, I think, because she didn't, I mean, I don't know what, you know, it's just difficult.
They thought you were on his side?
she didn't even know. No, she didn't even know I knew Pastor Biodun. She didn't know I knew Pastor Biodun. And she said to me, Biodun Fatoyinbo.
At this time, he was no longer in Ilorin?
No, he was no longer in Ilorin, and I hadn't heard from him in years. You know, I actually didn't even know where he was, to be quite honest, at that time. I'll tell you how I knew where he was. I actually didn't know where he was. I didn't know. You know, when she said, Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo, one of the things that goes through your mind at this time is, what could have possessed a man of God to do this? And then also you in your mind you're thinking, maybe this is a devil thing, you understand, and
you
are
didn't
thinking,
doubt her.
No, to be quite honest, to connect all those things was a bit difficult for me at that point. It wasn't something I was expecting to hear. It wasn't something I had been faced with prior to that, and there was just so much going in me. So anyway, I didn't say much. I said, Pastor Bionu Fato Imbo. Then she said, Mommy, the reason why I have come is because I want you to speak to my sister. I think that you counseling her would help her because you're a mother figure. And I want you to talk to her. I said, because she is distraught. She's distraught. She has gone through terrible personality changes.
Wow.
She said Busola was the best in our home, in our family, in terms of her commitment to God. We were all looking up to her, and she said she felt very responsible because they made her go
where?
To the church. They made her start to attend, to attend the program and the church. She didn't want to go, and this thing has happened and everything. So I said, for me, God is in control, or something to that effect. I can't really, I too, at this point, was going through a lot of emotions. Number one, I knew Biodu. I couldn't really marry the Biodu I knew to
what you're hearing.
What I'm hearing. So I had to process all that. Eventually, at some point, she now called Busola. And even on the phone, I knew I was speaking to a troubled soul.
So even on the phone,
yes,
you could tell that she was troubled.
Oh, she was troubled. She was truly
8 years
troubled.
Ago.
Yes, she was truly troubled.
What troubled her? What was it?
Yes, it was like, why would this happen to me? One, and what have I done to deserve this? And this is just too much for me to handle. Anytime I try to get away from it, it catches up with me. I don't know how to get my life back. That is the summary of everything, And she was not happy about herself. She was not happy about where she was or where she had to go through.
Was she married then?
She was not married then. It was part of her saga was getting into a relationship. She wanted the relationship. At the same time, she didn't want the relationship because of her past. She was going through, it was like a really Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde character thing. It's like mood swings, personality, total personality change from the perspective of the victim. Yes.
We're talking, this speaks to the typical psychology of a rape victim.
Oh yes, I've handled quite a few rape victims. I've handled quite a few rape victims, and I must say that at least 3 of those that I handled, among the many that I handled, actually alleged, because I don't know, they were not willing to come out, but they alleged that it was this same pastor, but, there's no way to prove it, because if they're not willing to actually come out and confront the pastor, which is one of the deep pains that I have personally, because I see all these broken victims and they're not willing to confront the people they're alleging have raped them. They're, for three reasons. Number one, some of them feel, all of them feel stigmatized, traumatized, abused, and they feel a guilt of some sort, that if I come out, then people know I've been raped, and it's like a stigma. Some of them, once it's a man of God, because I handled others that it's not this same man of God, but
another man of God,
that they say it's a man of God, that they allege it was a man of God that did this to them, you know. And, you know, for three reasons, they don't want to come out. Some of them are married now. They never told their husbands, and they're not ready for that upheaval because they don't know how their husbands will receive it. They don't want their family in the media and things like that. They're not ready for all that controversy. Some of them are not married, and because they're not married, they feel, who will marry me if I come back out, if I come out now and I say I was raped. Then some of them who had experiences with men of God feel that it is, they will be, they're petrified of touching the Lord's anointed, in quotes.
You're a pastor. Now, when you hear things like that, what does that do to you? And have you reached Biodun Fatumimbu himself, one of the pastors that you know that is causing this controversy, that has made us seek you out here in Ilorin? Have you reached out to him?
I didn't reach out to him during
Why?
Busola's case because I didn't even know where he was.
That was 2011.
That was 2011.
When you first heard about it.
When I first heard about it. I didn't know where he was. And let me be honest, somewhere in my mind, I felt that maybe it was a mistake. And I'll just pray for him that this doesn't happen again.
Could it be, just confirm to me, that you were not concerned about spoiling the church or making people feel that you don't attack the church? That wasn't the reason you did.
No, that wasn't the reason. The reason was that, to be quite honest with you, I could not marry the Biodun I knew with this allegation. But I knew that the girl was telling the truth. Let me make that plain. From my interaction with her, even on the phone, you know, I had several interactions with her on the phone. I knew that she was telling the truth. To me, I knew within me that this was truth. But I felt that, you know that it's like the devil. Do you get what I mean? I felt I felt it was a one-off thing. That it's the devil this, you know, like this thing, it's, you get what I mean. So I didn't know where he was, and I wasn't really going to pursue it except in the place of prayer for him, you know, and think that, you know, I just
Do you regret that now?
Yes, I think I do. Because, you see, what now happened was, I eventually reached out to Biodun, and I'll tell you how I reached out to him. I slept, and I had a revelation. And in that dream, I saw myself being transported in an elevator. Reverend Oset can confirm this. But being transported in an elevator, and I was transported up to a penthouse. And the elevator opened in front of a door. And I stood in front of that door, and I was transported through the door. The door didn't open, I didn't knock. And on the door and on the bed, I saw Reverend Biodun.
With a female?
With a female. So I said, wow.
Isn't it a throwback to what you had heard? Because this probably was like 4 years after?
It was not a throwback to what I'd heard. It wasn't a throwback at all to what I had heard. I'm going to tell you what happened and how I knew it couldn't have been a throwback. I saw Reverend Biodun on the bed and I said, Reverend, Pastor, how can you be doing this? This is wrong. This is wrong. You can't do this. It's wrong. You're a man of God. And he leaned up the bed and he looked at me and he said two things. He said, there is a grace that covers this. And he said, even if you want it, I will take care of you and show you the world. I didn't know the import of those words. When I had that dream, I woke up, said, Biodun. Then I ran to Reverend Oset because Reverend Oset is my spiritual father. I go to his church. And I said, Reverend, this is the dream I had about Biodun. I didn't even know it was in Abuja. I didn't know about Biodun. I didn't even know Reverend Oset at that point. I didn't even know Reverend Oset was had ordained him into ministry or was his spiritual father. I didn't know all that. And I said to Reverend, this is a dream I had about Biodun Fato Imbo and everything. And the next thing Reverend said shocked me. Could it be that Biodun has not stopped this? That's what Reverend said. So, I said, what? Then Reverend now went into some things that I would want him to, if he's willing to say himself. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then I said, what do I do? What do I do? Then he said, Biodun is in Abuja. I have his number. I said, I would want to call him. I'd like to call him. So
did you tell Reverend Oset that Busola had spoken to you a few years ago about?
No, I didn't tell Reverend.
But that was in confidence?
Yes, that was in confidence. So I didn't mention that at all, you know. So I now got his phone number and I called Biodun. And I spoke to him and I said, Biodun, this is Pastor Ms. Olotu. This is the revelation I had and everything. He said, no, there's nothing like that. Nothing like that, no. He said he had a challenge some years ago. Reverend Oset knew about it, but that was because something, his wife, I don't want to discuss his personal issues and everything, but all that one has been solved, and he and his wife have fantastic relationship and everything.
So he admitted to having a challenge at some point?
Yes, he did. He admitted to that.
To you?
Yes, to me. And so I said to him, I said, please be careful. You have a great ministry in front of you. Don't allow the devil to pull you down. Just order your steps, in the highest level of decorum and everything. I just advised him as a mother, and he said thank you to me, and I put down the phone. The next day, I now tried to reach him, just to encourage him again. I discovered I couldn't reach him again.
And that's till today?
Till today.
What do you think may be the reason that he's doing that?
I don't know. He's the only one who knows.
So, Busola reached out to you. So when Busola came out, what went through your mind? Did you fear for her life?
Busola is still going for therapy to therapists since the incident, up till today. That she's still going to therapists. That she's not been able to lay that ghost to rest. And she was feeling that maybe coming out, helping others by coming out, and helping herself by coming out, And I said to Fumi, I said, well, everything, I can't say Busola come out or Busola don't come out, that it has to be what God is leading her to do. But what I can do is support her in prayers concerning whichever decision she decides.
So finally, why did you agree to speak to us? And what do you hope this will achieve?
I agreed to speak to you because I've actually been feeling very bad by the way people have been turning Busola into a victim all over again. This thing happened a long time ago, like people would say. But how long is it for one to forget about rape? You are deprived of your virginity. Rape is spiritual. You start having spiritual, psychological, physical problems that you never bargained for. You are battling so many things in you. And then people come out and victimize you again. I don't think it's right. For me, and I want to be very, very frank with you, Adesuwa, I want to be frank with you. For me, this is the issue. Number one, Pastor Biodun is not the only man of God. He is not the only successful man of God. He is not the only anointed man of God. He is not the only popular man of God. We have so many young pastors that are popular, that are successful. I don't want to start to name, but you know them, I know them. Why is it him alone that for so many times now, somebody is coming out? Somebody is coming out. Even here in this ministry.
So that's your concern?
That's my, no. That's not my only concern. My chief concern is for Busola. That is why I have agreed to speak. Because I cannot deny that Fumi came to me in 2011. I cannot deny that I spoke with Busola in 2011. When I didn't, and I've spoken to her since, consecutively since then. That's how I met her. It was this issue that brought Busola into my life. So can Busola come out now and say this is her issue? And then I say, no, I don't know anything about it.
You're a witness.
I'm a witness. I might not be, in court.
Not there physically.
Yes, I was not there physically. But at least I knew about this issue. She spoke about it.
Well, you're a witness to the extent that you know the psychological effect it had on her.
It had on her.
Okay.
And so I don't think it's right for me
to stay quiet.
To stay quiet.
But should the church stay quiet?
No.
And is it possible?
It is
this is
not
just between
right.
you and me.
Yes.
Between you and me.
Yes.
Is it possible that the church is quiet because there are multiple pastors who are culpable?
Between you and I have come to admit to myself that there are multiple pastors that are culpable.
So what's the fate of young women who go to churches? It's supposed to be a sanctuary. What's the fate of those women? What would you say to them and to the church?
I would say to them that for mothers, I have two messages. I have one message for the mothers whose children go to churches. Watch the church your child is going to. Watch the personality changes in your child as she attends this church. Watch out for things like, has she become more materialistic? Is she wearing things that normally should not afford? Is she going out with friends that normally you would not appeal to? You would not appeal to you. Be vigilant and be diligent in being vigilant.
Okay, finally. I said finally before.
And I also have a message.
Second advice.
To the ladies themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
To the women themselves.
Yes, to the ladies themselves who become victims. See, there is no woman or man of God that is worth it that you put in the place of God. No woman or man of God that is worth it that you put in the place of God.
If there's justice for Busola, will that be victory for the church and those in the church?
Oh, definitely. If there's justice for Busola, it will be victory for the church. It will be victory and liberation for so many young girls. You see, people will now be willing to come out. They will now be willing to come out.
While I'm saying thank you, and I appreciate the fact that you've mentioned that Fumi came to you in the first place and then you spoke to Reverend Oset, I would like you to accompany me now So let's go and find these people since I'm here in Ilorin. Is that okay with you?
Yes, that's
Thank
fine.
you very much, Pastor.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
The reason I came to you is because Pastor Busola Olotu spoke to us, and we came to Ilorin because it's a case study that has given us concern about what's happening in the Church of the Lord. And that case study is in reference to a man who grew up in these parts, even started spiritual life in these parts. And I'll come to that, but why I came to you today, and I thank you for accepting to speak with us because you're a peaceful man, you don't like to cause trouble, is because Pastor Busola told me specifically that some years back she had this vision that she saw the pastor in question saying certain things that turned out to be true when he was accused a few years later. And this pastor in question is Pastor Biodu Fatoyinbo. And the issue that came out was S.A. Waters. So is this true or false?
Well, Pastor Busola Olotu did tell me that she had that vision. And she then asked if I could make available to him then Biodun's phone number, and I did.
So what did you do personally about that? Did you believe what she told you, or did you caution her, or did you caution,
Knowing Pastor Busola Olotu as I do, I had no reason to doubt what she told me. She's not somebody who is given to hyperbole. She says it the way she feels. So when she told me that she had that dream, of course I believed it. And then he, as I said, asked for the young man's phone number, and I gave it to her. And after quite some efforts, I think she got through to him and delivered her message.
Okay, I noticed you used the word the young man, meaning he's younger than you are.
Definitely.
Okay, and also the young man means there's some kind of relationship, because we hear that you were one of those that ordained him as a pastor here in Ilorin.
Well, I want to put that in the right context. What happened was that he had started a ministry work in town. I didn't know him as at that time. And then he was, I think the ministry was based in the street called Yoruba Road in town. And he had been doing that work for quite some while. I wouldn't remember for how long now. Then subsequently, he interacted with one of my sons in the Lord in terms of how can I get somebody who is credible to
lay his hands
to pray for me, but was already in the ministry. Was already in the ministry. That was how he came to me with his wife, and I made a number of findings, and I didn't have any reason to reject his, just prayed for him. He was already doing the work.
Okay, so it's terminology here: ordained, support, agreed to be a spiritual father of sorts with him. Are you still his spiritual father today?
No.
Why not so?
Basically because when in August 2013, news broke out online concerning him and his ministry, as somebody who was close to, as an elder, I thought it was my responsibility to get across to him. I was preparing to go to the United States for ministry, but it was in August 2013, if you remember. And after quite some efforts, because it was not easy to get through to him. He's a pastor in Ilorin here. I told him, get through to your boss, and I want to share a thing or two with him. Eventually, he succeeded. And then I told him, if he called me from Abuja, and then I told him, yeah, well, this news is all over the place, and I want to hear from you, and I want to also give you some counsel, if need be. Yeah, exactly. And he said he will get in touch. I said, okay, I'm on my way to the US. While I'm there, if I want to get through to you, how do I do it? I thought he would just say, sir, you can get through to me by using my email. Then he said, well, his fear at that time was that he was being bugged. All he said that he was being bugged. I said, okay. So I left and I traveled. When I came back from the United States, I still tried to get across to him. Now I'm back. because my desire always is to please God. By the grace of God, I'm not saying this to impress anybody. Those who already were making comments, no, I wasn't on that route. I just wanted to see how it could be useful in terms of helping him. But he didn't show up. So when he didn't show up I waited for about, from August 2013 to April 2014. When he didn't show up, and he was coming to town, was having meetings in different places, I was seeing his billboards in town. Well, my wife and I said to ourselves, we've done our bit. It was then I wrote him a letter and I said, please consider that we no longer have anything to do with you in ministry. And the letter was, I didn't post it. It was hand-delivered by his own pastor because the young man told me he had delivered it. I know he got it. But my letter was not replied. So that was the end of my formal relationship with him.
And your letter still hasn't been replied?
No.
Now, have you made any effort at all to reach out to this pastor again?
No, it is not in terms of ministerial ethics. He is the one who owes me that contact, not me. I tried to get through to him by the grace of God as an elder in the body of Christ and in age. And he said he would get in touch, and he didn't get in touch.
Okay, which brings me to the whole essence of what we're doing here. I wonder, though, how things like this can happen in church, and it appears that nobody can do anything meaningful about it. And for me, or for mothers, or for anybody who's watching, doing something about it means not only cautioning the fella, but seeking help and taking him off the pulpit completely. As I speak to you, as I come here today, I do know that just a couple of days ago, he was back on the pulpit with his wife. So why is the church so lenient with a case that has come out clearly to show that somebody may be culpable?
And our Lord Jesus Christ knew that Judas had become a thief, but it wasn't Jesus who said so. It was John who said so. Not because Jesus was weak, but because Jesus was hoping that this man would change. So you will always find that in the scriptures, the purposes of God are redemptive. Before God comes with judgment, in any case, you'll see that he will have tried to get through to the person in love. It is when his love has been rebuffed and rebuffed and rebuffed again that willy-nilly he comes down with judgment. That is God's procedure.
Can the church as a body be more decisive?
No, what people don't know is that God does not rule by force. He rules by love. So any entity that is set up in the body of Christ cannot afford to be oblivious of that. People have spoken. People spoke in 2013. But you can only help somebody who wants to be helped. If somebody doesn't want to be helped, even God will not be able to help him. His hands will be tied in that regard.
So you will agree with me if I said, for example, people go to church to find peace, to find it's a sanctuary. So especially young women, would it be okay for young women to feel unsafe in churches today?
It definitely won't be. We should go to church and be relieved of the pressures that society puts on us. We should go to church to be blessed, to be edified, to be strengthened, to be revived.
So don't you think this whole activity that is happening, I'm going to go back to the case of Busola who's come out to speak. She's been vilified on all platforms, a lot of platforms. People have said she's lied, but she's soldiering on. I wonder though, you must have had cases like this come to you. You're a man of God, right? You must have had cases like this come to you. How will the fact that nothing is happening protect those who are afraid to speak? What comfort will they get from knowing that the church can still be there for them?
Well, I would want to approach that question from two dimensions. If somebody comes to me, for instance, and has been taken undue advantage of by his or her pastor, it's my responsibility to meet that person at the point of need in terms of counseling, in terms of prayer. And if I have access to the one who victimized that person, to go across and say, well, this is what I had. Is it true? Then to speak in that regard. But if, you see, people forget that attending any church is volitional, is voluntary. You do not you're not going to contact anybody before joining the church. It's something that is entirely left to your choice. So if somebody, for instance, is in a church and you find that certain things that are happening to you are at variance with the stated will of God in the Bible, you should know what to do.
You should move out.
Exactly. If the person stays there, then I think it's the person's fault. That is not to say that if then it becomes clear that a particular ministry or church or whatever is becoming more of a nuisance than a source of blessing to people, elders in the body of Christ should not speak. They should speak. And I think in that regard, some of these people don't even belong to any of these organizations. That's what people don't know.
A church like COSA, for example, doesn't belong to the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria.
Okay.
So you think anybody will be able to discipline a church like that?
That's the point I was trying to make. If an organization does not belong to a particular church setting, a particular church structure, then I don't think it's legally possible for that organization to discipline somebody who's offended.
How many of your fellow pastors have you heard this thing about? We know, for example, that Pastor Olotu came to you about the case of Pastor Fatoyibo. Did any other person come to you about that?
No, because she was the one to whom God gave the vision in a dream. God gave her a vision in a dream, and she came to me, shared with me. And I said, get across to, the subject of the dream.
Did she come back to you later with?
She did. She said she had successfully conveyed the message.
And did she tell you about his response?
Well, she told me that, he just said, no, that, by the grace of God, things like that, he will not want things like that to happen. Will be on his guard. Okay,
since you're used to be his spiritual father, it's important also to know that even though he responded to her, you must have been aware of other cases against this particular pastor.
You mean at what time?
At whatever time.
Oh, okay. Well, so many years ago, there were such, things that people said here and there.
Allegations.
Yes, allegations. And those who were able to investigate, we did. And we came to conclusions at that time that we felt will help the persons concerned to be able to stand strong in the Lord. Whether the instructions we gave were obeyed or not, we cannot really tell.
No, okay. Correct me here. Are we talking about this particular pastor that some people have come to you and complained about him and you've investigated and sorted the problem, or you're talking generally?
Well, the pastor you are referring to
is Pastor Fatoyibo.
Okay. Now, what I can tell you is that so many years ago, there were things that were, quite like the kind of thing that people are talking about now, and brought to me, and I waded in, and by the grace of God, it was settled as far as I knew, because I gave definite instructions that I felt I should give as an elder in the body of Christ.
So what we normally hear is they counsel the victim, don't worry, keep quiet, don't make any noise about it, and they weep, maybe give him a knuckle, don't worry, don't do this again. Was that what happened in this case? They settled the victim, keep quiet, don't make any noise. Pastor, never do this again.
Well, I'm not aware of anything like that, somebody settling somebody else and say, well, don't do this again. And, no.
So what was the counsel that you gave at that time?
Well, the counsel that I gave was that anybody pastoring a church of young people from diverse backgrounds has to be careful, because all of these people came to that place with all kinds of experiences. And I encouraged them to see to it that he always gave them the full gospel.
Did he deny?
And he assured me.
Did he deny those, sir? Did he deny them?
Well, as far as I can remember now, there was a particular case that we waded in, and it was quite clear. It was not an issue of someone denying. It was quite because, you know, it was not one person, it was not two people standing it was in my sitting room. And there were so many people that were there, you know, and I said, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, because certain things are obvious. We cannot go into further details because some of the people concerned are now in their various places, and you will just be
maybe married.
Yeah, you will just be. It's not something that I want to pry into.
Is it safe to say that you know, Pastor Fatoyinbo knows, the victims know that these things had happened, and it's likely that's why you were pained when Pastor Olotu came to you and reported what she saw, and then you felt, so he's still doing this thing.
When Pastor Olotu reported to me, it was a dream she came to share. She had a dream, and she came to tell me, well, this is the dream I had about so and so. I want to get it through to him. It was at that level, and I gave him I gave her his phone number.
Did you even imagine that? Let me say it in Yoruba. Shomode Ishi Abiboshi, is she still doing this kind of thing? Because at that point in time, some of these cases you're talking about had already come to you. Is that why you were so bothered and you wanted to reach out to him and tell him to change when you read about S.A. Waters?
No, I wanted to find out if it was true.
So what do you
Because anybody who has a sense of justice, when you've had one side of a case, you want to also hear the other side. So I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, you know, and I would have asked, this thing that's going all over the place, is it true? And then from there, we know how to take off by the Holy Ghost.
Is it possible also, I'm just being deductive here, I'm not a lawyer, but is it possible also that he didn't answer you meant that he was guilty?
Well, I don't know about that because, as I told you, he didn't come, and that's as far, and it foreclosed the relationship as far as I was concerned.
So, Pastor, I took a break so that I could actually see this, and people know that this letter actually exists. This letter was dated 23rd of April 2014. And I think I will take the portion, second to the last paragraph, where you caution him. I've been trying to reach you, you've not reached me. It says, thank God for your remark when you preached with us in July 2013 that Daddy leads, he does not control. Thank you for your efforts. It means that he knows you are not somebody that can force an issue, right?
No.
He's probably taking advantage of that. Whatever it is. And this is not really about whether he's taking advantage of that or not. I wonder though, now, today, Pastor Fatoyinbo is again accused, now publicly, of having done something that you know people have accused him of before in the past. It begs the question of whether it's proven or not, what should be the right process to handle this? If he is your son and you're talking to him today and you had opportunity to speak with him, tell him what you will tell him.
Well, it's exactly what, from my readings online and some of the dailies, what I've had, the instructions that have been given to him, and that is that you leave the pulpit and seek the face of God, and so that you, whatever you need to tell the Lord between you and the Lord, you sort them out before with him, and then take steps that will show that you are concerned about the kingdom of God, you are concerned about the destinies of the people who come under your tutelage.
There are people who are saying that all this effort to try and get Pastor Fatoyinbo to be accountable is probably an attack on the church. Are saying the truth.
Sorry?
People say it's an attack on the church. Why are you guys attacking the church? Why are you attacking the church? Why are you attacking the church? Is that a fair statement to make?
No, I think if something has been observed, the people we minister to are not, we don't own them. It is God who owns them. We must not run roughshod over God's people. We must not lord it over God's heritage. Anything that in the least can confuse the people we lead must matter to us.
Well, I mean, I guess that also speaks to the fact that when the pastor who's been accused of rape comes back to his church and his congregation is dancing and happy and welcoming him, it means they trust their pastor.
That's right.
No matter what we say.
That's right.
It's immaterial.
That's right.
It's immaterial.
That's right.
Okay, so
you cannot physically go to somebody and say, well, no, you have to come out and drag him out.
So
No.
we have to depend on the legal authorities to do something about it.
I think that's...
However, that doesn't absolve church leaders, does it?
No. Church leaders must speak. And I think quite some have spoken.
And the only thing they can do is condemn it. That's what you're telling me?
Yeah, because you cannot go and police people or drag them to court. I think people are looking at it in terms of, for instance, if somebody joins a company, something goes wrong. If he's culpable, he's taken to court. They call the police to arrest him. Generally speaking, it's not like that in the church. If no physical harm has been done. Of course, if physical harm has been done, the person is, you can also tell the police. But if something that has been done, it's not a physical harm or somebody, you cannot do that. You can't force people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm so appreciative because you are a man of peace. You don't want to shake anything.
Thank you.
Or you agree to speak to us because you want to see change happen, just like we do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.